So, can you tell us your name and when everything started?
My name's Amy Park, and it was August 7th, 2024, but it feels like yesterday. I was younger then, well rested, and not burnt out, but it went all downhill after the first day of school.
I remember the first week of class, we already had to learn about the process of collecting data. And I didn't know it, but that's when everything was gonna change.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process of collecting data?
Sure, there are different ways to collect data when it comes to samples. The most common method is a simple random sample where everyone in the population has an equal chance of being selected. Then there's a stratified random sample where you divide a population into groups based on similar traits like gender or age. Then pick a random sample from each group. This ensures representation. We also got a cluster sample where we randomly select groups and choose everyone in those groups.
I see. And how exactly did learning this concept make you feel?
It was honestly traumatizing. The process of labeling, randomizing, and selecting for every single sample and experiment design was drilled into my head for weeks. We were bombarded with work after work.
After just a month of school, I could already tell that Amy was affected by stats. She came home talking about how she didn't pass her first test after studying for hours. That was when the obsession and daily chaos started.
I remember after that first month, Deborah started talking about sampling distribution. Something about how sampling distribution is all possible samples of the same size from the same population and calculating the same statistics for each sample. It was weird. She also mentioned how there are sampling distribution of a sample proportion and sample mean, and a million formulas for each. It honestly sounded like gibberish.
But thankfully things calmed down after the first semester, or so that's what I thought.
So, Deborah, can you recall how you find convincing evidence for a one-sample t-test?
Alright, I'm not quite sure I know how to find it all, but first is the state step. You start by first stating the null and alternative hypothesis. The null hypothesis is stated at the sample mean being equal to the population mean. The alternative hypothesis is stated at the sample mean not being equal to the population mean. For the plan step, we have to check conditions. 1, the sample must be randomly selected from the population. 2, it would be that the observations should be completely independent from each other. 3rd, the last condition is to check for an approximately normal distribution. If, by any chance, the sample size is smaller than 30, the distribution has to show no strong skewness or outliers.
So, I previously asked your old classmate to tell us about finding convincing evidence for a one-sample t-test, but she couldn't really get the do and conclude step. Can you recall how to do those steps?
Yes, I believe so. The do step is where we plug everything in. So the sample mean, population mean, standard deviation, and the sample size. But that's not all. We also have to find the degrees of freedom.
But how do we find that?
We just do the sample size minus 1.
Now, how do we find the critical value and the p-value?
A quick way to do that is just by using your calculator. So step calc and test and t-test. Talking about the calculations, just reminded me of my teacher, Miss Esperanza.
Step, count, one bar step.
Sorry, I have to fill in for Amy now. I remember her in her room always saying the phrase, "If the P is low, the home must go." Then start rapping Snoop Dogg lyrics. Anyways, I think she said something about how if the p-value is less than the significance level, you reject the null hypothesis. And if the p-value is greater than the significance level, then you have failed to reject the null hypothesis, and you don't have conviction.